Hi, I'm Venessa Giunta. I am an author and an editor and an all-around like to talk about things person and a little awkward sometimes. But one of my favorite things to do is talk to authors, right? I love talking to authors about their process, their writing, their careers, their marketing, all those things. And I really love just sitting down and just talking about stuff. I mean, communication is my love language. So that's really what I had in mind. I really wanted a situation where I could just have a conversation with somebody. So, and a conversation and a cocktail is really all about us hanging out and drinking together and talking about the stuff. Everybody. Hello. Good to see everybody out there. I'd like y'all to welcome our guest tonight, Desiree M. Ortega. Hey, Desi.
Hello. So excited to be here.
I know. I'm excited you're here too. Yes. So to give everybody a little bit of backstory, I met Desiree on Twitch. She was one of the writing streamers, and I would raid her because my stream ended. And she was still going, so I would raid her, and it just was always so much fun in there. So when we started connecting that way, I really decided I wanted to get her on the show. So here she is. Welcome, Desiree.
Thank you. This is really exciting. I'm like, yay.
I know.
I'm just processing.
All right. First question. Big question. What are you drinking?
Yes. Very important question of the night. Here is my attempt at a pretty little cocktail from what I gathered and rummaged through the kitchen. So we have here, it's a sparkling champagne with a splash of sangria, and then it's garnished with these lovely strawberries.
That sounds so good. I love it.
Very indulging and yummy.
Yes, it is very fancy looking. Mine is.
I know. It's all appearance. I
in a glass.
I was like, I had to make it look good.
Mine's just booze in a glass. I'm drinking mead. It is called Razacadabra. It is a raspberry-based mead that is from a local meadery here in Atlanta called the Viking Alchemist. I usually drink mead on this show because I have so much. It is insane. I cannot keep myself from buying it, and I don't drink enough to really drink it all down. So literally half of my liquor cabinet is mead right now.
I don't think I've ever actually had mead, sadly. I know. I've never taken. I know.
Gasp. All right, we will fix that. We will find a way, because you and I don't live that far from each other. We will probably be at some event at some point together, and I will make sure you have mead. So yes, absolutely. Cheers.
Perfect. Cheers.
All right. Welcome to everybody out there in the chat. I see the comments have been going crazy already. So awesome. Joe typically puts people's hellos and stuff up on the screen, but there's so many. Look, the first. There it goes. He's just gonna go through them real fast.
I love
I'm sure. So welcome everybody. So glad that you're here. This show, if you haven't been around the show before, we really just sit and shoot the shit. That's really what it is. It's not like a very formal interview thing, So I do ask a couple questions here and there just to get us started, and y'all are absolutely welcome to jump in with questions, thoughts, comments, whatever you'd like. So I do want to start out asking, though, Desiree, so you have a co-writer, right? So you write together under a pen name, is that right?
Correct. Yes. Me and a close friend of mine now, Tiffany TL Russ. She's also an author of her own. And we got together and decided to do this thing, which was not in the plans, but it's been an amazing ride. We just started publishing June of last year.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Mhm.
And look at y'all. Look this way. Look at all those books way over there on the other side of the screen. There are so many. That's amazing. I
It's
love that.
wild
So,
to think it's been so many already.
so let's back up a little bit. How did you I always ask all of my guests, what was your like, radioactive spider bite that got you into writing, not just, writing on the internet, but, writing professionally?
Ooh, okay. Yes. So, as all of us who write, we've dabbled in different
Mm,
variations of it throughout our lives. It probably all of us can say at one point or another was our little safe place for expression
mhm.
and all that. So, of course, it's always been a part of me. But I thought when I was growing up that I was going to stick to screenplays and I was going to
Oh,
pursue directing and screenplays because I grew up in theater and I loved writing, so I
oh.
wrote plays as well. And I thought that was the route I was going, but life took a turn, and I was in a season in my life where I started reading YA and
Mm.
young adult novels, and I was doing it for escape. I never thought I was capable of writing novels. I've written poetry, music, again, plays, and so forth, but I didn't think I was literary enough or educated enough to write a novel. So I never even touched that possibility.
Oh.
Yeah. And so when I got hit with the YA bug, I love adventure stories with romance. Give me anything adventure with
Mm.
romance. So I had read Divergent by Veronica Roth. And something while I was reading was like, feel like I feel like I can do this. And I had this instant like dystopian adventure story in my head. And one day I just got to my computer. I was in a very like low place in my life, a lot of transition.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like not taken seriously, just let me take a stab at this. Long story short, it felt like home. And suddenly it was
Oh.
just like this was the medium of writing that just fell into place.
Mhm.
And I there was still a lot of growing to do, obviously, as someone who'd never
Mhm.
attempted to write novels, the rules, all that stuff, learning how the everything goes. But it was the most fun, like diving into that world of writing novels. And so I started as a YA author for a few years and thought that's where I was going to go
Ah.
traditionally.
Oh, wow. That is so fascinating. I had no idea that you started out script writing. That's
Hmm.
amazing because that's a direction I wanna go in at some point, you know? So and Joe is a script writer. I don't know if you saw when he put his comment on there, "You can always go back to it. Trust the guy
Oh,
who is
that's
back
amazing.
writing novels after 20 years away from it." Yeah, so 'cause he was primarily a script writer for a really long time.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that is
very
so
interesting. I
cool.
haven't thought about going back yet, but I feel like there probably will come a time. I wrote so many cheesy, horribly written screenplays because I had no
But
intentions
I
of
feel like
doing anything with
that's like every writer, you've got all that stuff you did when you were younger, when you were green, when you didn't know what the heck you were doing, you were just throwing words on a page and hoping
pretty
something came
much.
out.
Exactly. But oh, it
We
was so
all
much
have those.
fun.
Yes, we have
Yes.
all done that.
Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of questions in the chat.
Yay.
So, if we can scroll back up, I think the first one was favorite romance movie from Laura Nettles, who is a
Ooh,
regular on
oh.
Twitch. I recognize that name.
Laura's an
Which
amazing author of horror drabbles and also writes romance under a pen name. Amazing, amazing, very descriptive
yay.
prose and beautiful writer. Oh man, movie. Okay, probably in the most like dramatically romantic way, and it's probably because of my theater background. I will always adore Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge
Oh,
because it combined
my
everything I wanted visually, music, uh, the drama of the theater, and then the romance story, and yeah. So I would say
got you
probably
on all fronts, on all
mhm,
fronts. That was,
everywhere.
when that came out when one of my younger sisters she was probably just into getting into high school, and she was obsessed with that movie. I mean, and I'm significantly older than her. I'm like 17 years older than her. So, so like she was obsessed.
Was
So,
obsessed. I taught
yes, I've been
drama to a group back then. I literally had them doing case studies of the movie because of how obsessed I was, but I made it sound like it was just such an important thing for us to like study. It was an excuse. It was an excuse to keep watching it with all the kids. I mean, they weren't kids. They were old. They were younger than me, but they were mostly either adolescents to adults. But it
yeah,
was like, yeah, the obsession was the
was
the
real.
soundtrack in the car playing 24/7 and everything.
I love that. That is fabulous. I love that. So I would say my favorite romance movie is Die Hard.
Ooh, see, my second
Romance.
option was going to be Fifth Element. I was torn between
Oh,
Fifth
yes.
Element and
Yes.
Moulin Rouge.
Yes. Love me some Lilu.
Yes.
Lilu Dallas
Oh,
Multipass.
I literally have a little Funko Pop of her on my shelf
Oh, yay.
that was
My
gifted to
Funko
me.
Pops are either Duran Duran, who are still in a box right now, but all these are uh different horror. Like there's Vincent Price. That one's Vincent Price, that one's Stephen King, and that one is Jack Torrance from The Shining with his
That's
axe. So,
fantastic. Oh, I love that.
yeah. I don't collect Funkos, but the
Me
ones that
neither.
amuse me, the ones that amuse me, I
You're
grab,
like, you
like,
have to come home with me. You have to come home.
right? It's important. You
Yes.
must have those things. So, we've so many questions. Woo, okay.
Wow.
If you could have a conversation with any author, alive or unalive, who would you chat with and why?
That is always such a difficult freaking question. It's a classic question too. Oh my goodness. Here's the thing. Growing up, I had no reading influences in my life. So
Mhm.
I
Really?
yes, no one in my life was a reader. Nobody, friends, family, nobody. So
Wow.
I didn't think that I would go through these random pockets in my life where I would pick up a book and I would devour it in one sitting and then I wouldn't touch books for like a long time again because I it was something that called to me, but in my head I was like, no, I'm not a reader. And again, I didn't have that influence in my life. So for a big portion of my life, I did not read really, like I wasn't
Wow.
reading. So it's interesting because a lot of like when it wasn't until that season in my life where I started reading YA that it like took off from there and I
Right.
realized why did I not do this all my life because I had no chill. It was constantly reading books in one sitting back to back to back.
Obsession. 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 Obsession.
So it's hard because I didn't grow up like reading other than like the classic like admiring Jane Austen stories because they're
Mhm.
I loved historical dramas growing up. They were like my mother's and my thing. Any historical drama that would play on movies or shows
Oh.
we watched together because we loved that. Again, never read them till later in life
Mhm.
because no one read in my life. So it's hard to think who would I feel you know what?
Well,
I
you could
yeah.
even think about somebody that you would like to pick their brain about writing and publishing, you
Yes,
know?
and I think I know who that would be. It's someone who's been in the game for a long time and writes the genre that because in addition to the pen name, I plan to query and hopefully one day traditionally publish under my name, Desiree M. Ortega.
Mhm.
And I'm currently working on the editing process to a romantic suspense novel. So that's my other
Ooh.
favorite genre. And Kristen Ashley is big in that space, has been around for a very long time. Um, and that would probably be someone, hello, that would probably be someone I would sit down with because they broke a lot of rules, industry rules,
Mhm.
because their novels are very long and
Sure.
even though they write a lot of romantic suspense, the romance is heavier than the suspense, which I think
Mhm.
would be tricky for some in publishing companies to want to like they'll probably want more of the balance. So I would want, and she's very successful. And so I would like to pick her brain, especially because that's the genre that I really want to hopefully become a part of and grow in and build a career with.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's funny because romance, and I've been saying this for many years now, but romance is basically taking over all the genres. Like every genre has a romance subgenre, right? Or romance has a subgenre of
Yes.
every other genre, right? So it is, and there's a reason for that. It's because it
Mm.
is literally the most wide read genre in all of publishing, period, and nothing else comes close to the market share that romance has. So,
Which
yeah,
I
that's
find interesting.
fabulous.
Yeah, I find it interesting because I feel like the stigma that used to be against romance and still is
Mhm,
it has
sure.
lessened because I think
Yeah.
people have become, especially like I feel like people are embracing more their desire for like that type of companionship. Women
Mhm.
have really embraced their own like sexuality. And so
Yep.
that's a conversation for a whole other day we can get into. But I think people
Yes.
are becoming so open
Mhm,
to not being what people grew up with a lot of shame for like
mhm.
the essence
Yep.
and traits of romance and all that. So it's become now it's infiltrating and really like
Yeah.
being sprinkled in every genre.
Yes, yes, and, that's actually the whole reason that ebooks got as big as they did is because of romance readers.
Yeah.
Romance readers were early adopters. You would think it would be like sci-fi readers or even fantasy
Or
readers, but
thrillers or
no.
like
Yeah, but no, it was 100% romance readers, and a big part of it was because they could read it on a device and no one would see that they're reading romance. Not even necessarily that they were ashamed, but that they just didn't wanna deal with
yes,
with the
the
side
typical
eye or the
questions, eye
comments.
roll,
Right,
snide
right,
comments and assumptions and yes.
right. Yes, yes. So, yeah, and I'm not a big romance reader or writer, but I did spend 10 years editing professionally for an erotic romance publisher.
Oh.
So I have a lot of like, I'm not one of those that is like, ah, romance, that's so easy. Anyone could do it because no. I read the Slush Pile. No, not everyone could do it.
This is true. That's so amazing and that's interesting because for example, as a romance reader, what I read isn't always what I write either.
Mhm.
And so, there are so many nuances and variations of the genre and how
Yeah.
people so it's there's so much more to it than people even really
Mhm.
fully understand unless they're fans of it or they read it themselves or have given it a chance.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And as a reader also, particularly when I was younger, I read very widely in horror. Like that was my genre. I in my teens and my 20s, I sucked up horror like it was water on a hot day cuz I just loved it. I don't actually write horror. Horrific elements often come up in my urban fantasy,
Mhm.
but I don't write straight horror except for short stories. Short stories, if I
Oh.
start a short story, it almost always ends up being horror. So it's so interesting, like reading versus writing, which leads right into Laura's next question. What are your favorite romance tropes to read versus
Mm.
write? And
Ooh.
what one are you most looking forward to writing next? I did notice as I was looking at all of your different titles under the pen name with
Mhm.
your co-writer, I noticed that you guys hit a lot of the subgenres in
We're
romance,
trying.
you know? So yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to hear your answer to this.
Right. Okay. So reading versus writing tropes. Oof. I would say reading, I definitely go darker in my taste. I will read sometimes the darker stuff. Maybe it's the suspense
Ooh.
lover in me too. So, but I don't think I could see myself writing the darker stuff. So,
At least
uh,
not right now.
not right now. Maybe, yeah, we'll see how I evolve as a writer. As of right now, I feel like I keep it pretty tamed. um, I definitely like I read a lot more a variety into the darker stuff that's like either the mafia stuff or the motorcycle stuff or even the paranormal romance stuff. I read a lot of paranormal romance too, but I've never thought about writing in the genre itself as of right now. I haven't seen myself touching paranormal romance, and I definitely read a lot of that as so that would probably be. And then what I'm excited to write next, I mean, right now I'm really, because I've been focused so much on Des Lorré, which is short, contemporary, sweet, steamy romance. I'm really excited to like fully delve back into romantic suspense, full-length novels. I hadn't touched my draft since like 2 Octobers ago when it finished. So now I have a CP writer, reader, who we're exchanging our work, and we're going through it now. And I'm reading more in the genre, and I'm really getting excited to now start expanding more in that and playing more with those stories, which I haven't touched in over a year. So
yeah, it's always fun to go back to the stories, or even just generally the genre that you kind of were first drawn to write. It's almost like a homecoming. It's like, oh, this is my happy place. I remember this place.
yes, especially because having my CP reader, like going through the chapters recently, getting their comments, I hadn't read or touched the story in over a year, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about all these things I'm like getting giddy about these characters that I had put aside on a shelf for over a year again, and it is like coming home to something, and it's getting me excited. Like I'm itching to find ways to now delve back into that world.
And those characters are going, welcome back. We've been sitting here on this shelf waiting
I'm
for you this whole
sorry.
time.
I printed a draft from Amazon because I wanted to physically have it. It's got a typo on the cover, but and it's really chunky because it's double spaced. It's also 125K words, so it is chunky, but it's gonna need
It's
to be
chunky on its own.
yes. But holding this was very surreal and exciting. I was like, because I hadn't finished the novel in a while before finishing that one. So now like having it again and going through it, I'm like, okay, we're here to play again. Hi friends. Hi old friends.
That's right. I love that. I love that you're going back to that too. It always makes me happy when authors do that, because there's there's sort of a certain way you approach the one that like the book that brought you, like the novel that brought you in. There's always this different way that you approach it than other stuff sometimes. So I love seeing how authors go back to that. If that makes sense. I don't know if that made
Yes.
any sense.
No, it does. Definitely, yes.
So Jennifer asked, since you thought you were going to be a playwright, besides Shakespeare, do you have a favorite playwright?
Ooh. See, the thing was in high school, my teacher at the time, because I was a part of when I first started theater, I did cabaret, which we did the PG-13 version of cabaret too.
Well, of course.
But after that, we had a new teacher, and they played it very safe. They kept things very very like simple stories and stuff. Yeah, very traditional, simple stories. So I didn't get to explore that much, but I loved like the angst that we experienced with cabaret. And so I wanted to delve into more dramatic roles like that. And sadly, I don't think I read enough playwrights to know one that I would say would be my favorite. But I definitely wanted to hear.
Did you typically write screenplays, or did you write plays?
Both. I started with plays, and then I moved on to screenplays. And
So
that
do
was
you have a screenwriter that you look up to?
I didn't study anyone because I didn't think anyone. I literally did not think anything was going to come of it. I stayed in my room and I wrote these stories, and it was like a necessary like release to just stay hours in front of a computer and the old computers and just
Right.
type away. I had back then Celtics was for free. It was a screenwriting program, and I would just write stories like constantly.
Oh.
And that's why I wanted to go to Full Sail, which is in Orlando, Florida. I was going to apply to Full Sail to go into actually education for screen writing and also directing, because I didn't think acting was anymore a part of like writers. Oh, really? I hadn't heard, because I haven't touched screenplays in so long. I need to look up writer's duet.
So for me, Aaron Sorkin is like a screenwriter who
Oh,
just
I
blows
haven't
me away
studied the
with
word, but
his
I
stuff.
know who. Yes.
Yeah, he did West Wing. He's done so much, but like the big one for me that was impactful for me was West Wing because he's just freaking brilliant. So yeah. All right. So there are so many questions, and y'all, I'm sorry we're not going to be able to get all of them, but we're just going to keep plowing through. I don't even have to do nothing but read the screen. This is awesome. All right. If you could meet Veronica
Oh
Roth,
gosh.
one question would you ask her?
This is my co-writer, by the way.
Oh,
That's
she's
my
setting you up,
co-writer.
is what you're saying.
Yes. Because I would probably not want to meet Veronica Roth, and because as much as her first book was such an impact in my writing journey,
Uh-huh.
as a reader, I have very passionate opinions about what they did with their series in not the best way.
Oh,
Like
I
passionate.
understand that.
So I feel like it's sadly like it just I would say if I did meet her, I would say that, you know, I would compliment Divergent, the first book, for sure, because it was something at that time. I don't know how it translates rereading it today, but at that time it really spoke to me, and it geared me up like to want to dive into dystopian sci-fi adventures and play with that world. So
Mhm.
but she
Yeah,
knew.
so I mean, at least it was
My writer knew.
inspiration,
My
right?
co-writer knew what she was asking.
She knew what she was doing. She knew it. She was setting you up. That's what she was doing. But, you know, I'm the same way because, like, the one that I would answer that original question about, you know, who you would what writer or whatever, it would probably be Stephen King because he was just so freaking influential on because like I said, I was a horror reader. But the
Mhm.
thing and I don't get me wrong, I love me some Uncle Steve. I love me some Uncle Steve, that but, like, 60% of his books, he can't end well. Like,
Mm.
he's shit on endings, but, like, that doesn't stop me from reading. Yeah. See, we had to bring
Oh,
Uncle Steve in.
sorry,
This
I didn't mean to
it's
clap in
like
the mic.
Joe's tradition. That particular Uncle Steve, it shows up in almost every show.
That's
So,
amazing.
but yeah, like I still read all his books. As a matter of fact, I have his 2 newest ones on my shelf that I haven't gotten to yet, but they are in the queue. Um, I will always read his books.
Mm.
But like I don't like once we get toward the end, I'll be like, all right, is this one of the ones he does right, or is this one of the ones he screws up? We'll see. Who knows?
Well, we'll slowly read the last book, rush through the whole, like, enjoy the process of the
Right.
whole first part of the book, and then
And then
ease
be
your way
like
into the ending. Mm,
looking a little side eye there.
mhm,
So
mhm.
yes. All right, labyrinth of timers. When writing genre stories, do you find it easier to write romance than other genres, even if it's mixed into the romance stories? So I think it sounds like what they're saying is, do you find it easier to write the romance part than the suspense part, for
Mm,
example? Since you're talking about romantic suspense,
yeah.
like do you find the romance easier than the other genres that might also be incorporated? I believe that's what the question is.
Yes, and for me, absolutely, the romance is. I have been a very. I have grown up as like the most hopeless romantic growing up, so I was that
Oh,
person. Yeah, and
oh.
granted, I've been single for many years, but I have always been that like hopeful dreamer kind of deal,
Mhm,
seeing the world through like thinking the world is kind and wonderful and put
mhm.
love on it and
You're the
everything.
Disney princess, the Disney princess.
I grew up that way. Yes, my mind very much liked being in that world, like believing. You grow up and you see things, but for the most part, when it came to like reading and really getting into reading books, romance is what captured me. I'd always been fascinated by the dynamics between two people who find this connection and this safety within each other. And then funny enough, growing up, I was always the counselor for all of my friends' romantic dramas. So I got to play that role, not purposefully. So
we are sisters, Desi. We are sisters.
So it was like it was so easy to like write that as well, because I had unintentionally psychoanalyzed it for so many years, watching through my friends' dating lives, that it was just fascinating to me to write about that. And I just got off on there always being a happily ever after, even though that's maybe, the world is very not
even though you knew from all those stories that no, there really wasn't very often a happily ever after,
but I wanted to always
eternal.
Yes, I wanted to escape to a place where I had that happy ever after always happen, and just that's something I was always passionate when reading, so I became passionate about it writing. So for me, writing the romance is always like, I have to have romance. Even when I wrote my dystopian sci-fi YA story, it had to have romance. Like, I had to have that connection. So and explore that connection, especially because I feel like two people coming together because of like dire circumstances push them together, as cliche as that was. So yeah, it's always easier to write the romance above any other part of the genre.
Yeah, you are not alone, clearly, after, seeing all those flash up on the screen. Something interesting that makes me think of is that, so when I was in grad school, I went to grad school for writing popular fiction. Not, we didn't study like Faulkner and Hemingway and stuff. We studied Stephen King and Nora Roberts and Janet Ivanovich and all that. But one of my mentors at school, we were talking about how horror was very easy for me to write, even though my book wasn't horror. The parts that were horror came off very well. They worked the way they were supposed to. And he said to me, and this has always stuck with me, that when you have a genre that you really love and you read a lot in, you learn everything about having to write it kind of by osmosis, because you have so much experience reading good, whatever that genre is. So, I mean, and so it's really interesting that you said all that, because it just really kind of rubber stamps exactly what he told me about me with horror, that, you read all that romance that really appealed to you, and that part is the easier part for you to write.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yes. I love that. There was another question. Let me see if I can find it. And maybe Joe can find it too. Oh, here it is. Esther asked. Esther, hello, Esther. I know you.
Yeah.
Any old play or screenplay you wrote that you would like to adapt into a full-length novel?
Oh gosh. Oh man,
They're coming. They're coming with the good questions, man. They're coming.
I remember we had gotten into this discussion last year at some point, and it was the first time I opened some of my old screenplays.
Isn't that like sometimes the worst thing? Because you're just like, oh, it's so cringy. It's so cringy.
Oh, skimming through them. I was like, oh, Desiree, what were you? Oh, why? Why was that the choice you were making in that moment? So I would say that I would heavily have to like completely overhaul some of these old screenplays if I ever thought of going there. There were a lot of cheesy, either Hallmark or Lifetime original movie romance. Like,
well, I mean, there's a huge market for that right now. You may pull those things out, rewrite them, send them off to Hallmark.
I mean, maybe it's true, but yeah. So it would be very interesting going back in and seeing what I could do with them, because they're special.
Yes, I recently. So, people who have been around the show know that like I had a tree fall in my house and stuff, and we had to pack everything up, and I move out, move in, all that stuff. So I was unpacking, a whole bunch of books a week or two ago, and I ran across the old composition notebook that I wrote my angsty teenage poetry in. I'm not a poet. Let's just be clear right there. So, and I was an angsty teenager, and I'm reading through some of this, and I was like, oh my, you sweet, sweet, sweet child. It's just like so cringy. So
All the
cringy.
emotions, you're like, what is happening here?
Yes, what were you thinking? So Lainey had a comment, and Lainey and I went to school together. Lainey, Lainey
Really?
says that we had a grad school professor, Tim Isaias, repeatedly encourage all genres to study what the romance writers do, because one person's desire to connect with someone will always fuel a plot. And that is so true, because like one of the other interesting things is that romance and horror are the most closely connected genres to me, because they're both about emotion, right? And Tim was right. Romance is entirely about people connecting with each other, and you yes, Esther. But like romance is entirely about people connecting to each other. That's literally the base of the genre.
Yep.
And every other genre, every other book can only benefit from the author understanding how romance writers create those connections, because every book is about people,
Yes.
even when it's not about humans, it's still about people, right?
Yes.
So
It's so
I
true.
will say that, just like I said, I don't write or read. I don't read romance and I never have, for pleasure. But like I said, I edited romance for 10 years professionally, and I learned so much about that, and so much about like writing kind of sex scenes, and writing, because sex scenes are action scenes, right?
Yeah.
And things that create a good sex scene also create a good action scene, because they're both the same, right? So I learned so much editing romance. I have so much respect for romance writers, you know what I mean? Now, I will say that before I started my grad program, that wasn't necessarily the case. I was definitely in that it's all formulaic and anybody could write it. I was definitely in that camp, but
A
I
lot
was
of people are.
wrong. I was wrong.
We're still
So
working on getting the stigma of poor romance.
yes,
'Cause
right?
it's something that will like cling to it just from so many generations, but
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
feel like people are becoming a little more open to it now, or a
Yes.
curiosity. There's a curiosity more
Yeah,
than
and
before.
the genre has become so widespread also.
Yeah.
Like one of my okay, and this is a gripe of mine. I write urban fantasy. I don't write paranormal romance. But so many places clump them together like they're the same thing, and they're not. Because paranormal romance is under the romance genre, and urban fantasy is under the fantasy genre, right? So I like if I sign up for like a promotion, like a group promotion type thing, they almost always group paranormal romance with urban fantasy, and I every time email them and say, you should not do that, because the problem is that then readers assume that there's going to be a romance in my urban fantasy.
Yes.
And then when there's not, they ding me on my reviews, right?
Yeah, unfortunately,
So
they're very passionate when they don't find the romance, because they're assuming there's going to be
so
romance.
passionate.
Yeah.
Yes. And I respect that they want the romance. I'm just not the one to give it to them.
Like, I
It's
didn't
just
need
not
to be
me.
in that category.
Yes. When I write romance, it's smut, like smut. So,
I love it. It's
because I have
either
a pen
one end or
name.
the other.
Yes, there is no crossing those streams. I mean, I have like some romantic tension and stuff in my urban fantasy here and there. But like if I'm gonna write
Such a
romance,
human
it's gonna
connection.
be smutty romance. It's gonna be
That's
smutty. People are gonna be getting
amazing.
down and dirty, is what I'm saying.
Interesting. Well,
Yes.
Vanessa, I'm very intrigued.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, oh, still.
Yes. Yes. It was funny. I was at Atlanta Comic Con this past weekend, and there was a bunch of us from the writing group, the writing tribe, the
Mm,
writers troupe.
yeah.
Sorry, we changed names, so
I
now I
know.
get all mixed up in my head. So the writers troupe, yeah, you know that. So and there were a bunch of us vending together, and there was one woman who came up, and I always bring a few of my smut books with me and keep them under the table because there's always someone who you're like, "What do you like to read?" And they're like, nothing really here." And it's like, "Oh, you like smut, don't you?" And they're always like, and I'm like, "Come here, let me show you what I have. If you're not interested, that's cool, but let me show you what I have." So yeah, anyway, all right. So a little part of me you didn't know.
I know, I didn't. Very exciting. I'm intrigued.
Yes. So there was actually a question really, really early in the thing, and I'll find it, Joe. You don't have to find it because it's gonna
Come here.
first one's
Look what
free.
I've got in here.
First one's always free. All right. It was Bree Rudd or Rude. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Any advice for the first time self-publishers route? Someone going for
Mm,
self-publishing. So that was quite a while ago, but it caught my eye and I wanted to make sure we touched on it because
yeah,
you guys do indie publish your books,
yeah,
correct? So
correct.
what advice do you have for an author who's just starting out in indie publishing?
So indie publishing is just as hard as traditional because a lot of people think
Just
it's the
different
easier
hard.
route. Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of people think one, it's the easier route to go, or the
Uh-huh. I mean, it's easy in that you could just, like, upload it and it's there.
accessible.
But if you wa
Yeah, it's easily
Right.
accessible for everyone.
But if you want success, it's not gonna be any easier.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the thing I would definitely touch on is that anyone, literally anyone, can just post something, self-publish something on the Zon, anyone.
Mhm.
Um, if this is something you genuinely
You're
if this
welcome. You're welcome, Rebecca.
under the table, that's
It
amazing.
does. I mean, it is definitely that kind of smut also. Anyway,
I
sorry,
am so
Desiree.
intrigued by this.
Don't
I
mean to
am I'm
completely
like, I
waylay
would
you,
have
and
never
sorry,
thought.
Bree. Okay, go ahead. Going back to indie
Sorry.
publishing.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I'm such a bunny trail route person. Like I will go every which way and then come back around. But
Same.
so I would say one, if you genuinely want, if you want to write because you want readers to read it, you want to find your readers, connect with those readers, and write stories for them as well as for yourself, obviously. But if you're putting it out there, you're more likely than not wanting to connect and find readers who also enjoy your stories. Then there's going to require some preliminary work that I would definitely take serious and do some like planning prior to just diving in. Like really think about figuring out what your genre is, where your genre fits
Who
self-publishing,
your readers
especially.
are.
Yeah, where are your readers? What are they? Obviously, you want to find out where your comp titles and those authors that have written stuff like you've written, because that's where your readers are also at. And if you want to find those readers, then you have to do the work to prepare and match
Mhm.
what their expectations will be, because they're just going to blankly pass and see your book probably again on Amazon, most likely, unless you go wide, and that's a whole other discussion and monster in itself. um, but if you
And
go
they may
the
still and it may still be on I mean, if you're still putting it on Amazon, that still may be where they find you.
Exactly. So it's something that you definitely want to take the time to look at all the things that make these other authors who are writing what you're writing possibly successful. Looking at their covers, looking at very important. I know it's hard, I know it's expensive, but you need to find editing of some sort. You need to edit
Yes.
your book because some readers out there are ruthless and they're very picky.
True.
And if they find a mess of like common simple like spell check errors and things like that. Those little things that you feel like, oh, they'll forgive. You'll be surprised. They will easily give you low marks and reviews over, little things like that. It's tempting to just want to put it out there. It's tempting. You got it. You finished it. You did it. You're like, all right, let's just throw it out there and see what happens. You want to put some forethought and try, and you have to remember it is a business as well as a creative venture. You are creating a business. You want to create.
Tiffany.
Well, oh, wait, Tiffany. Don't be.
Put Tiffany's back up there. Yeah.
Oh, there are so many of us here to help. Yes. Plus, we are all nervous. Absolutely. We've done a number of releases and we still get nervous each time.
Every time.
Yep. Make sure you find the right people to enjoy what you do. Do the foreplay. Check into their exes.
Back.
Make yourself pretty.
Welcome back.
Oh, that's fantastic. And make them love you. You have to set a date, ask the questions you need to ask, and just do it. Yes. So it is, but again, there's a whole community that wants to help as well. There's a whole community that has either done it, is in the process of doing it. So definitely don't lose your courage, but just if you want to be successful, it's going to take some work. So put the work in and figure out where you're going to land. And then from there, it's kind of a luck game as well out there. So
yeah, for sure. Hey, Joe, will you put Bree's last comment up? Bree says, I feel like I want to throw up every time I'm thinking about releasing my baby into the world. That's not uncommon, but I will say, as someone who's been in publishing both on the back end and the front end for a couple decades almost now, you need to figure out a way to separate yourself from your writing. It's still always going to mean something to you regardless, but you've got to figure out a way. Your writing is not you. Your book is not you. And you need to try to figure out a way to distance yourself a little bit, because there are going to be people who don't like it, period. Period. And you may hear from them. They may email you, they may leave you a bad review. I literally had a review on my smut. Another smut author offered to put my stuff in her newsletter just on a whim. I was like, cool. And she writes in the same genre I do. And she's a bigger author. I only have 1 or 2 books out because I'm focusing on my other stuff. And I was like, cool, thanks. One of her readers gave me a 2-star rating, and I had a 4.8 average at that point with something like 30 reviews. And she gave me a 2-star review. You want to know why?
Why?
Because I wasn't this other author. That's why. Because I wasn't this other author. So it was just they're going to do stupid shit like that. So you've got to figure out a way to separate yourself from your work, emotionally. Yes. It's hard, especially with the first one, because it's your baby. But there's going to be a lot more books. So,
and that's why a lot of authors will. A lot of authors will tell you, once the book is out there, it's not yours anymore. What happens to it, people's opinions of it, it no longer involves you. Yes. You think you're a part. You created a story. You went through that process. You hopefully enjoyed it, and you put it out there. Now it belongs to them, and you and you move on to the next one.
One of my very, very best friends is in recovery for alcoholism and drug addiction, right? And they've been in there for a long time, right? So they're 21, their sobriety is old enough to drink now. But one thing that they've told me over the years that's part of the whole, recovery thing is that other people's opinions of me are not my business. And it goes doubly the same for your book. Yes. Other people's opinions of your book are not your business, unless what they're saying is stuff that can help you improve your shit. Then maybe listen.
Yes.
But, otherwise, yeah. Beck says, I once got a 1-star review because of the gay content in my book. I didn't have romance or sex in my book. The sad fact is a lot of readers have no reading comprehension. Absolutely true. So hopefully, Bree, you'll take all of this to heart. And try not to be so scared. Yeah. Cause it's that whole thing of, okay, if you're scared, fine, do the thing scared,
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
So
You're only going to grow
yes,
from it. And your first book is not going to be the same as your second and your third and your fourth. You're going to get better. Your writing's going to evolve. But you
yeah,
won't get to the place where you're evolving and getting better unless you actually start putting stuff out there and
that's
and
right.
and grow.
That's right. And a little bit of additional advice I would give to somebody who is interested in indie publishing is also understand that there's so much. It is such a big thing that it's very easy to get overwhelmed. Don't
Yes.
don't freak out. There's always stuff to learn. You will never stop learning new things about indie publishing. So don't feel like you have to know everything to get started.
Exactly.
You just need to know what you need to know now,
Exactly.
and you can worry about the rest of the stuff later. So, all right. Phew.
Putting just hopefully all that wisdom and knowledge helps.
All right.
We're
Yes.
here for
I feel like there's such a great community out there. I mean,
it.
there's so many great communities out there, you know. You just have to find the one that resonates with
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
And authors historically, we are a helpful bunch, you know.
Mhm.
If I can help you, I want to help you,
I'm not going to
'cause-
hoard all the information to myself because I don't want you to know my secrets of success. No.
oh,
There's room for all
and
of us.
and yeah, because like the thing is, just because like somebody isn't only ever going to buy one book ever. Like they're not
Mhm.
only ever going to buy from one author ever. I mean, there may
Mhm.
be a few people out there like that, but most readers are not like that.
Mhm.
You know, that
We want
whole,
more content. We constantly want more.
right. They're greedy bitches.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
they want
those
more
damn
now.
readers. They greedy bitches.
And they want it now.
Yeah, right. They don't want to wait. They don't want to wait. Joe says, I applaud your courage, Bree, and that is so awesome. You decided that. And that I think you said something about keeping going. So, and
Mhm.
it's super courageous that you asked.
Yes.
So, yay. Good job. Good job.
Yay.
All right. Whew. I feel overclimped now.
I know.
So,
No, and what I'm drinking, I'm like, oh yeah, it's making me a little
I know,
warmer.
same. I'm like, little woman here. And I'm getting all woo.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Getting
let's drink
excited
more
and
of the
passionate.
alcohol that's making us hot. Like you put such a positive spin on it, but the reality is the publishing world is constantly evolving.
Yes.
So you'll always be at least slightly behind,
Mhm.
just like everybody else. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's why if
All
you
right.
keep waiting to figure it all out and have it all figured out, the moment you think
Wrong way.
thank you.
Wrong way.
The moment
I
you
did the wrong
think
way.
you have it, the moment you think you have it figured out, it changes again. So you
Yep.
can't wait. You can't wait.
Yep. Just, figure out what you need. There's also a group on Facebook that you might be interested in called 20 Books to 50K.
Ooh.
And the whole premise is that if you write 20 books, you can get $50,000 in income because even if they each just make, $20 a month, that's 20 books.
Wow.
But the thing about that group is that there is so much. It is very business focused. It's not about craft. It is
Mm.
entirely business focused, and you can learn so much just lurking in there. But there are like thousands of members, so it can be very overwhelming as well. So just keep that in mind. But it's very, very useful.
Mm.
Let's see. Joe says, I like how as soon as Beck started commenting, oh, the fans came out.
Everyone's
I
like,
mean,
yes.
we were also talking about smut, so there's
So,
that.
and we're drinking. So there's a combination of things happening here.
We are
Mhm.
drinking, and we're both getting a little in our cups right now. So,
Just a little.
and come watch what we do here on Going Out. Yeah, I probably should be plugging the channel, right? We do. We have fantastic shows every Sunday afternoon at noon. We have This Week in Indies, which is a panel show. There's just all kinds of stuff. Check out the YouTube that you're currently watching right now on,
Subscribe.
theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, subscribe and like and all the things. Yes, smash those like and subscribe buttons. Okay, I didn't mean to get into the plugging part of the show so quickly. We still have a few more minutes. So let me scroll back because I know there were some other questions. There was
Mhm.
another one about indie publishing. There's lots of supportive comments for Bree. So
Yay, that's awesome.
so let's see. Joe, if you yes, go indie now does rock. Rosie, welcome, Rosie. That's Rose Evenstar, by the way.
Oh,
Rosie Potter
Rose!
there.
Oh, hey.
Um, Let me find. Okay. Okay, this is a good one. Tiffany asks, that
Mm.
is along the lines of what we were just she's setting you up again, to be clear.
Here we go.
What is your favorite and least favorite parts of indie publishing?
Ooh.
So there it is.
There it is. Yeah,
See,
she
see,
was.
she says she's setting you up. She's like
Yeah.
very. I love your honesty, Tiffany. I love your honesty. I
She should
hold that very dear.
she will happily say it how it is, which
Right
works
under that
great.
bus, Desi. Right under
We're,
that bus.
we balance each other really well, which I'm very grateful for. Um, oh man, we're a lot of us are very much creatives. And so, though some are very business savvy and have marketing skills and stuff, that is not my forte. And so, yeah, I would love to be able to just happily create in my little corner. The readers
Correct.
happily create in my little corner and then give it to someone who's going to figure all the rest out. But when you're an indie publisher, you're an indie author, that's you got to do it all. And you got to put on all the hats and you got to learn and you got to understand the business. You got to figure out the marketing game and the algorithms and the things that are constantly shifting and changing. And there's a lot that goes into indie publishing. That's not my favorite, but it has to get done. So I'm learning. I'm forcing myself to figure it out and to learn. But yeah, as a creative, leave me in my little bubble with a gorgeous view and my cup of coffee and my computer where I can just type all my stories happily, and then someone else can do the rest.
Yes, I am
Oh,
same. If I could pay a competent person to do all of that part, I would. I have a VA. She's still, she's still learning a lot, just like everybody is. So,
mhm.
all right. So Lainey wanted to see if we could
Mm.
comment on this. Go ahead, put that back up, Joe. Chasing the trend, whatever, rarely works. But by the time the trend is ID'd, it's probably over or on the way out. You
Mm.
really have to write the story of your heart, then find its home. So she wants us to comment on that, like what we think. I'm assuming that's what you mean, lady, that you want to see what we think about that statement,
Mm.
because that's what she said right before. Curious if either of you can speak to this.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you have thoughts on that, Desi? I have thoughts on
So
that. So,
yes,
but you
yeah,
first.
it's a very interesting game to play because, for example, with Des Lorré, which is the pen name that we co-write under and we indie publish, we very much have stuck to a certain niche of short romance that very does well on Amazon. And so there to a certain point, we do try to ride certain waves of whatever may be trending at the moment for that specifically. But then at the same time, as Desiree M. Ortega, I am a romantic suspense author. And there are certain authors right now who have become very popular in that genre. They're trending right now. It wasn't the case 2 years ago, and who knows what will happen next year
Two
because
years, right?
yeah, it's going to constantly shift. So to a certain extent, then makes you wonder, does that mean I need to now pivot? Because maybe I'm writing romantic suspense now that coincidentally is having its moment. But then by the time I'm finished editing and ready to bring the book forward, oh, trend is
Right.
gone. But for me personally, I know that that's where I want to sit. That is the place I'm choosing to evolve and grow and build. So, you know, I think it's a little give and take on how much you want to give yourself to like giving into what's trending and what's in market especially when it comes to traditional publishing, it's a whole different story because they're very picky about what they consider successful at the moment. But when it comes to indie publishing, there's a little more leeway, I feel.
Yeah.
And
Because you can
so,
get stuff out faster than
yeah,
traditional publishing.
exactly. You're not waiting over a year for one book, one manuscript to finally like come out and all that. So there's a lot that can be said about that, but I'm curious to know what you think.
So I agree with you. I agree with you. I think that there's also another aspect that we don't necessarily think about very often is that sometimes what's hot is actually a new niche
Mm,
because you know what I mean? Like look at Lit RPG. Lit RPG has been huge for the last 5 years. And it's because someone started writing, they noticed that there's a niche that there were readers who are hungry for something, right? And they're hungry for it. And so anything you put in there that is a decent quality, they're going to eat up, right? And that's not necessarily the same as a trend, even though
mm,
like I think lit RPG is sort of on the downslope right now, but I think it's an established subgenre now. I don't think it's going to go away. So I think there's a difference between just like writing a hot trend
mhm,
and zeroing in on a niche that is underrepresented, that is underfed,
mm,
you know but the
yes.
problem is you don't necessarily know, you don't necessarily
You
know
can't
now
predict
things
it.
like if it's vampires, obviously that is not a niche that is underfed, that is a trend. but
Yes.
um but but I also think that I think that you should absolutely write what you're compelled to write, what you're called to write, and figure it out,
Mhm.
because that's really what we're all doing. It's just like figure it
Yes.
out. It may not be popular, right when you publish it, but a year later there might be a trend. And if you add some additional marketing or recover and re-release, you may be able to jump onto that trend, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Beck says, write what you want, then sit on it until it's selling well.
Yep.
That's absolutely another option. Writing is more is always the best answer. Yes.
Yes.
Um, I think there's also the write what your heart wants to write too. Absolutely. It might become a trend or that you find your niche because there's someone out there who will want to read what you want to write. Absolutely
Always.
correct,
There will
Rosie.
always be a reader for
Mm.
whatever is out there, like whatever you write, you will find a reader who will enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. And yes, Laney underscores the point that if the author enjoys what they're
Mm,
writing, the readers that find them and because they like that genre, that trend, that whatever, that sub niche, they're going to like it because of the authenticity of the writer. And
yes.
Rebecca warns me not to tell the vampires that they're not not to tell the
Mm.
vampires they're not underfed.
Oh.
So, all right. Phew. How you feeling about that? This has been a great, great,
I
great show.
there's so much I like could keep going. This is so good.
I
Like
know, same. I think you and I, like, we could just like sit here and talk for hours. So maybe we'll do that. Like, we can each do like a Twitch challenge where people have to put their points. Both sides has to be like 50,000, and then we'll do like a co-stream where we'll just talk for hours.
oh my God, please. All right. No, you think you say this, you're throwing it out there. I'm holding you to this because I'm here for it.
I'm down. I'm down. I won't be able to do it till after March though, because I'm out of
Same,
the country
actually,
for a few
same.
weeks.
So don't worry.
So, I mean, but yes, sometime later, maybe in the summer or something, I
Yes,
would be
I
down for
agree.
that.
Let's
Look,
do
yes, we're getting some
it.
support in the
I would put so many
in
points
there.
in.
Yeah, but you have to come to both channels. You have to come
Mhm.
to Desi's, and you also have to come to mine, is what I'm
Yes,
saying. That's all I'm saying.
exactly. I think
So,
for
all right.
sure they would. Yep.
Yes. All right. Okay, so let's put Beck's most recent comment up also because it's good. Another thing I've learned in the last 2 years, find a good editor who specializes in the genre, subgenre you want to publish in and follow their advice. It costs money because good editors do. And that
Yes.
completely underlines what you were saying earlier, Desi, about how, yes, it costs money,
Yeah.
but it is necessary. It absolutely is. And, if you're paying $200 and getting an 80,000 word manuscript, edited, you are getting what you're paying for. You're not getting a professional editor because
Yeah.
those of us who have been doing this and actually have the knowledge that you want to pay for, We charge way more than that. Sorry. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
But we often have little deals that will help you though. So doesn't hurt to ask.
Exactly.
All
Ask.
right. Yes.
Invest
All right.
money comment.
Desi, we have a bunch of your links down below, but is there any place specific that you would like to point people to, even though most people already know how to get a hold of you, most people who are chatting, but folks know how they can get a hold of you.
So you'll find me probably down below somewhere. You can find me on YouTube under Coffee Reading Writing. I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/Desiree M Ortega. If you're not a fan of romance, I also have written a short dystopian, a dark dystopian short that got published in a Canadian press called the Stygian Society, and currently available both in ebook or paperback on Amazon. The Stygian Collection, it was a group effort with actually a bunch of author tubers that were approached to create something for it. And it was published last year. So if you're not a fan of romance, you can go check out, have a taste of what else I can write, which was very fun for me because it brought me back to my dystopian love. And so it's definitely dark. It's a darker, very dark dystopian kind of environment and world. And it was, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of how it came out. So that's something you guys can always check out on Amazon.
I love that. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go look at that.
No romance in it. It's actually, no romance in it.
Rebecca says, "Find me down below somewhere." Sounds so dirty. I like it. We're trash here. We're just trash.
I freaking love it. I'm like, Rebecca, I like
we're
you.
Trash.
Glorious.
All right, y'all. Don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel, smash the like button, check out the other shows here on this network because they are fabulous. All right, and don't forget, it's always time to go indie now. See y'all later.